If you're someone who's been in a toxic relationship, then you might become really suspicious when someone new is being really nice to you. Are they trying to love bomb you? Are they trying to manipulate you into falling for them? And how do you learn to trust again? Plus, what is the number one sign that somebody is genuinely kind, not a love bomber? Well, bestie, today is a love-focused episode, and we're going to dive into all of these right after this intro. Welcome to the Inner Child Podcast. Now with 2 million downloads, I help high achievers recover from painful relationships and childhood trauma. Let's heal together on Season 2 of the Inner Child Podcast. All right, welcome back to Season 2 of the Inner Child Podcast. I am your host, Gloria Zhang. I'm a therapist, I'm a healer, I'm an author, but today I'm going to be putting on my relationship coach hat because we are talking a bit more about personal relationships. So the last couple of episodes have been a little bit heavy. We discussed how trauma impacts us on a societal scale. But today we're talking more about how these trust wounds can impact us on a personal level. And in this case, it's through our relationships. So if you are someone who has been in a toxic or abusive relationship in the past, where you feel like somebody tricked you into that relationship, they kind of got you hooked onto this illusion of love at the beginning of the relationship, this trust wound, it's more than just learning how to trust other people, but it's also about learning to trust our own decisions, trusting our own judgments when it comes to people. So it's kind of twofold. And I thought this would be such a great question for the podcast because basically every single client I've ever worked with in our soulmate program has gone through this as a rite of passage. When you've been in that many bad relationships, you stop trusting yourself, you stop trusting in the name of love, and you don't really know how to tell whether somebody is being genuine or not. And you start to question every single move that they make. You wonder, is that real? Is that not real? And the whole thing becomes a giant mess. This is also something I've been through when I was learning to trust in my relationships. So let's go ahead and dig into it. We're going to cover 3 things today in this very short and sweet, very practical episode. Number 1, we're going to talk about what is love bombing and is this happening to you? Number 2, what kind of person tends to love bomb others and are you susceptible to this kind of manipulative behavior? And finally, number 3, what is the number 1 sign that the person that you're seeing is genuinely kind, genuinely a good person? And we're going to wrap up everything with a call to action at the end where I've actually laid out a couple of very practical step-by-step things that you can do to start implementing everything from this episode. And by the way, check out my new hair. And yes, if you're wondering, Gloria, am I using my feminine wiles to try to get you to click on the YouTube version? You betcha I am. I actually was joking with my client the other day that it took me 30 years to get over the fear of abandonment, only to be replaced by a fear of going to the hair salon. So in 2021, in the middle of the pandemic, I got kind of scared of going to the salon and letting someone else touch my hair. And this was the same time that me and Andrew were on YouTube trying to watch tutorials on how to cut each other's hair. And I've been doing it ever since. So, hey, if you've got a pair of scissors and you have a husband who's willing to help, it might be something I work on in the future, but not to worry. It's kind of ironic, isn't it? That's why they say God has a sense of humor. But anyway, if you want to check out my hair, click on the YouTube version of this episode. In Season 2, we have everything animated, so you can click on the link in the show notes. But with that being said, let's talk about what love bombing actually is and how do you know if it's happening to you? So love bombing is actually a manipulative tactic. It's when somebody showers you with love and attention or gifts to kind of get you hooked onto them. Literally what the name sounds like. You are getting bombed or bombarded by love. Now, once they feel that they've got you in the palm of their hand, they will yank that rug underneath you. Depending on whether you are a healed person or an unhealed person, there are two very different ways that you may react to this. So pay attention to this and try to figure out which one of these you are. If you are a healed person, you have healed your wounds, you have healed your inner child, this is going to be a huge turn off to you. You're going to think that this kind of behavior is very childish, it's totally beneath you. At worst, you might feel kind of annoyed that they wasted their time, but you're just going to walk away from the situation. It doesn't interest you at all. On the other hand, if you are someone with unhealed wounds and you haven't done all the work yet, you are most likely going to become obsessed with this person. You're going to start analyzing their text messages. You're going to be thinking about it at night, talking to your friends about this person, trying to win them back. You're going to start fantasizing about how good things used to be. And what happens most of the time, 9 times out of 10, is that this becomes a very emotionally turbulent up and down relationship. Next thing you know, 6 months have gone by and you still don't know where you stand with this person. And you probably developed some additional trauma from being in this kind of situationship, as we call it. So that's what love bombing is. Now, what kind of person will love bomb and why do they do it? Well, if you're dealing with somebody who is more of a narcissist, they will do something like this intentionally because their whole deal is having power and control over others. And they really thrive off the feeling of controlling you by getting you hooked onto their love. But sometimes, if somebody is emotionally unavailable, so for example, they just got out of a divorce or they're really depressed, they may love bomb you unintentionally. And they're not doing it consciously, but it's because love bombing somebody and getting them hooked on their love, but still being able to push them away, it kind of gives them the illusion of having intimacy without needing to invest in you. In other words, if they feel like you are at their beck and call and you've walked right into their trap, they're getting all the benefits from getting your attention and getting your love without having to give you a clear answer on what kind of relationship this really is. And because you're so obsessed with this person, they know that you are not going anywhere. You are basically available to them anytime they need some validation or they need a hit of emotional connection, right? So you can see how somebody who is absolutely deprived of love and affection is going to fall right into this trap. It's just like if you're walking around in the Sahara Desert, you haven't had water in 48 hours, and you start to see a mirage, which is an optical illusion where it looks like there's a body of water. And the minute you get hooked on the illusion or the idea of water, you are obsessed with that thing. If you are hungry and you're starving and you get a little breadcrumb of a piece of bread, a salt and vinegar chip, that thing is going to taste so good. It's going to taste like the best meal you have ever had. And it's kind of the same thing with breadcrumbing in relationships. If you are so deprived of touch, of affection, of words of validation, then anytime someone gives you just the teensiest little nugget of it, it's going to feel like the most incredible high you've ever had in the world. And that's why that feeling of addiction, of love addiction, really comes in. So it makes sense, right? And the reason I'm explaining the kinds of people that love bomb, whether it's intentional or not, it really doesn't matter. And I don't want you to get trapped into this pattern of trying to analyze the other person and putting all of your attention trying to research the other person's behaviors, because at the end of the day, the thing that actually matters is that you keep falling into these situations. So do yourself a huge favor, stop focusing on why that other person is the way they are, and start focusing on why you keep falling for these patterns. And by the way, if you want me to do another episode on dealing with narcissists or dealing with persistent narcissists, let me know in the comments, and if there are enough people interested, then I may just do an episode on that. So let me know. So let's talk about our final tip. What is the number one sign that the person you're dealing with is genuinely a nice and good person, and it's not that they're trying to manipulate you? How do you tell if someone is just a nice guy? So the answer here is consistency. The person who is genuinely a really nice person is going to consistently show goodwill towards you through the entire length of the relationship. And I'll give you an example. A person who is love bombing you may buy you flowers every single day or every single week for the first 1 or 2 months. And when you get to the third month, they're going to start calling you names. They're going to start being really rude to you. They're going to start gaslighting you. And it's almost like they do a complete 180 on you. Sometimes this happens overnight. Sometimes this is a gradual approach. Now, if you look at a healthy person, they may get you flowers, but on the days that they don't get you flowers, they may communicate to you that, hey, they're just going through a hard time with work right now. They're sorry for being distant, and they can't wait to see you again. But a person who is love bombing you is not even going to let you know what's going on. They're just going to ghost you for 2 weeks where you have zero contact from them. You have no idea what's going on. And they're doing that to keep you guessing, to keep you wondering what's next. Versus somebody who is genuinely kind is going to feel bad about putting you in that position. They don't want you to feel bad. And so any time where they're not able to be there for you, they're going to let you know that they're still thinking of you and provide an explanation. Somebody who is love bombing you may call you 10 times a day for the first month. And then it's going to be radio silence where you're going to have to start chasing after them. But that is never going to happen with somebody who is genuinely kind. They may not call you 10 times in one day, but they will regularly call you once or twice a week. And that frequency is more or less going to stay consistent throughout the relationship. Now, if you've been dating for 5 or 6 months, obviously it may not be as frequent as the beginning of the relationship, but their general attitude towards you, the way they speak to you, is going to stay consistent throughout the duration of the relationship. Finally, when it comes to consistency, you're going to find that the amount of love or gifts that the person shows you should match the level of intimacy that is already established in the relationship. So a love bomber is going to throw jewelry at you. They're going to throw, weekend getaways to parents right off the bat. Where to somebody who is already healed, it feels very strange. It's almost like receiving all of these rewards before having earned that trust. And the bottom line is you don't actually know this person well enough. And it would raise the suspicion of why are they showering you with all of these expensive gifts? Why are they suddenly spending all of this time with you or wanting you to cancel plans with your friends and start isolating you from your current support network to start spending all this time with them right off the bat? It feels very odd. It's almost like somebody coming up to you and trying to sell you a $5,000 product when they haven't even built that rapport with you. Now, somebody who is genuinely kind, of course they may compliment you. Of course they may give you, small little appropriate gifts at the beginning. But it's only over time, over many months or many years, as you start to build the foundation of that relationship, that the gifts you will then receive are proportionate to how much trust and emotional connection has actually been built in that relationship. So you shouldn't be getting a car as a gift on your third date, but you might receive a car on your 3-year anniversary. Now, before I jump to the call to action, and I've got some really great tips for you, I just want to mention that obviously I can only give general advice on a episode, and every case-by-case scenario is a little bit different because we're not all dating the same person. Well, I hope we're not. Now, when I work with people in Soulmate, we do teach them how to analyze these different behaviors more specifically, since it is going to look different for everybody. Because when someone is really inconsistent with you, you learn to pick up these signs in your body that something feels very off. And much of the time, it's not that we don't have a gut feeling, but it's that we've learned to ignore the gut feelings, or we have normalized feeling bad in a relationship, or we've normalized feeling uncomfortable instead of paying attention to those feelings and recognizing that those are actually red flags. But with that being said, I'm still going to give you some very practical tips that anybody can use in their situation. So here is our call to action. Tip number 1, when it comes to deciphering whether or not someone is actually being consistent, I highly recommend keeping a journal, a time entry log of all of the questionable behaviors that have come up for you, from the gifts you've received, from the undesirable behaviors that you're not sure whether it's a beige flag or a red flag or a green flag. And once you have a complete record of all of these behaviors, then you can go back and kind of objectively analyze them and see just how consistent their behaviors have really been. Because sometimes if we don't write things down and look at them on a piece of paper, they all kind of get mixed up in our heads and we get swayed by our own emotions rather than the physical facts. And if you're really not sure, take that list and show it to a close friend or someone that you trust and get their unbiased opinion on what the heck is going on in this relationship. You will have your answer just from looking at all of your notes. Call to action number 2. I highly recommend going back to episode number 14, which is called Are You in a Trauma Bond When Love Hurts? And the reason for that is if love bombing is something that you deal with on a regular basis and you are unsure of on a regular basis, there is a high likelihood that you have a trauma bond pattern in your relationships. And go back to that episode, listen to it, and see if it fits your situations. Episode 14 is on season 1, so it's not on the YouTube channel yet, but you can find it on Apple or Spotify. So that's episode number 14. Now, if you are also questioning your own self-trust and you don't know how to trust yourself in relationship decisions, I also recorded a full 10-minute meditation helping you revive your self-trust and learn to feel confident like a goddess once again. So you can check out episode number 127, which is the guided meditation to revive your self-trust. I really enjoyed making that meditation, so hopefully it helps you too. And I plan to release some more meditations on YouTube, hopefully, when I get around to it. Call to action number 3 is that if this is something that you need help with and you've been putting it off for so long, it's literally my job to help people get out of toxic relationships, break that pattern, and find better dream relationships. So if you've been listening for a while, maybe it's time to book a free consult. And hey, there's no pressure. It's just something that we like to offer people. So I invite you to book a free consultation with my team of experts. Just go to bygloriazhang.com/soulmate. You'll get a full free report based on what we discover about you, and that's totally free. And you get to learn all about how we help people inside our soulmate program. So if you are someone who identifies as a high achiever, it seems like everything in your life is going relatively well except for your relationships, then this is the place for you. Go check it out. So, my loves, I hope that this was a short and sweet episode for you. It helped you learn about what love bombing is, how to identify whether it's happening to you, and I hope you use the exercises that I provided with you, keeping the record, checking out those other 2 episodes, the trauma bond episode and the meditation, and I hope it gets you some clarity so that you can get out of those situationships and into the one that you really want. That's it for today. I will see you in the next episode, and I hope you have a beautiful day and an abundant life. See you next time, my loves.